What are we gonna do when we get back?
What are we gonna do when we get back?
I take a shower and hit the rack.
Take a shower and hit the rack.
Welcome to Charlie Mike. If you're a combat veteran with an entrepreneurial bug and want to know what highly successful combat veteranpreneurs are doing to transform their sacrifice and experience to create their visual reality, then this is dedicated to your inspiring and fulfilling future. And now your host, Dwayne Paro.
No way, gotta run, beat, lots of fun.
Invest in Yourself ebook is my free gift to you for listening to the show and becoming part of the CO Nation. To receive your free gift, please go to landmarklifecoaching.com. Thank you for joining us on this episode. There are so many veterans with the core strengths to become successful entrepreneurs and continue to make a huge positive impact on our country. Here we highlight the amazing successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Combat veterans, for the purpose of this show, are soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen who have served the United States in wars, campaigns, and in theater on foreign soil or hostile waters. Our guest today is Michael Barbera. Michael is a Fortune 50 consumer psychologist and strategy consultant, angel investor, and award-winning business strategist. He is a business psychologist who is involved in both practical and academic endeavors. His areas of practice are consumer behavior, consumer emotions, social psychology, decision-making, brand management, and marketing and long-term business strategies. Michael is currently employed as the CEO of Barbera Solutions. His clients can be found on the Fortune 50 list, ABC's Shark Tank, and Bravo's $1 Million listing. In 2015, the White House recognized Michael for his contributions to entrepreneurship. This work includes development and validation of consumer emotions, consumer behavior, product placement, consumer interaction, and business growth strategies. Michael is a member of the APA, SIOP, SJDM, and the National Speakers Association, and is currently completing a Ph.D. in business psychology. He also has a BS in business administration and 2 MBAs, entrepreneurship and executive management. All right, Michael, welcome to the show, and thank you for being a guest.
Thank you for having me. This is amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show and give you a chance to tell our loyal listeners all about your journey from a combat veteran to a successful entrepreneur. But before we get into your entrepreneurial experience, can you give our listeners an overview of your military experience?
I guess I can do that. So I joined the military when I was 17 years old. I had to have my parents sign the waiver for me to come in because I was younger than the age of 18. But I grew up in a very patriotic family, and joining the military was always something that I wanted to do. And I'm going to tie this into talking about my entrepreneurial experience a little later. So at 17 years old, joined the military. Of course, I had the option to do military intelligence and a few other things. And being young and being a hard charger, I really wanted to be the ground pounder. I wanted to be the guy, carrying the weapons or being on the ground with the action. So I opted to be a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout with the U.S. Army. I did 15 years of the Army in a plethora of positions as a scout. Absolutely love what I did. Of course, as you grow in the military, leadership really takes over what you do. So you do your job, you do your military occupational specialty, but as time goes on, you become more of a leader than anything else. And in all the positions that I ever had, the leadership quality from being in the military really has helped me grow as a person and a business leader. But 15 years in the military as a scout, as an instructor, and a few other positions really has rounded out my entire life. And with that, without being in the military, I would have to say that I would not be who I am today.
Yeah, the military does have a profound impact on anybody that serves, and it just shapes the future. And I have, some similarities to your start in the military as at the age and coming from a patriotic family as well. As I've done these interviews, I'm amazed. I used to think I was kind of an anomaly starting at 17, other than, you hear of, the World War veterans or Korean veterans that, went in at a really young age. It seemed like that wasn't really much the case anymore. But the more I do these, have these guests on the show, it's like, wow, I'm one of many. but it's funny the similarities in that starting young, it just shows these common qualities of being driven at a young age and wanting to serve the country, a mission greater than yourself, and then being able to take that into an entrepreneurial world, and as well, it tends to create some pretty amazing leaders in our country. So very, very interesting. So, as you transitioned out of the military, how was that transition for you? Was it pretty, standard, or, I don't want to say easy, but, things kind of fell in place, or was there some amount of, difficulty in making that for different reasons?
Dwayne, that's a really good question, because I may... When I tell you my backstory, it's going to sound like I had a very easy transition. But although my transition may be easier, it depends how you define easy, than other people, there's still challenges associated with it. So regardless of who you are, what you do, what you plan to do, there's going to be different challenges associated with it. So I'm sort of an outlier when it comes to military transition. So obviously I transitioned into entrepreneurship. But what most people don't know is that I was an entrepreneur before I joined the military. Yeah, I know. I joined when I was 17. And I continued to be an entrepreneur through my time in the military. So don't really tell the Army this, but the Army was kind of my side gig. None of their business. So at 13 years old, I was a drummer in a rock band, and I lived in New York City. And of course, when you're 13 and you play the drums in a rock band, you feel this is your life. You're going to be this huge rock star. You're going to tour for the rest of your life. But we all know it doesn't work out like that. And obviously, it did not work out like that. So at 13, we would have a Halloween concert every year in our guitarist's backyard. Now, if you have a backyard in New York City, that's pretty cool because there's not much land to go around. It's usually house to house to house. And this one year, our guitarist's parents were selling their home. So we're like, okay, we can't have the Halloween concert at this house. We got to find another place. So this is pre-internet days. And so I get on the telephone and I start calling every possible venue in the New York City area. I'm calling nightclubs, concert halls, restaurants with stages, the local VFWs, etc. And I find this place out in Staten Island called The Caves. I go to this place called The Caves. It's a pretty cool venue, actually. So it's built into the rock of the island, into the land, and it used to be a brewery. So as you go inside, it's got, I think, 5 or 6 bars at 2 separate stages. It was a really awesome venue. And so I went in there and I met with the owner operator. And to my advantage, I was 13. I looked like I was 22, so nobody ever questioned my validity of being in a place that served alcohol. And of course, the best way to go about it was to not drink the alcohol, and nobody would ever question it even further. So I met with the owner operator, and we discussed what I wanted to do. It's like, all right, I want to have these bands come in. I want to charge this fee. We'll do this. And he's like, okay, we'll do it. And my only knowledge about business at this time was, well, you make money, revenue, you spend less than you make, and you have a profit. Revenue minus expenses equals profit. It seems pretty easy. It sounds common sense. So I knew that. So I said, all right, let's do this. We put on 2 stages, 22 bands, a full day event, and we made a profit. It was a huge success of an event. People came, had a good time, money was to be made, and the owner-operator said, Mike, let's do it again. So we did it again, and we did it again. And so what we have here is a business. And it turns out that the owner-operator of this club was A.J. Paro. A.J. Paro was the drummer for Twisted Sister. It's kind of the first time I ever met anybody semi-famous or semi-successful. And A.J. became my first mentor. Not in a mentor as in, hey, AJ, let's sit down on Tuesday at 6 p.m. and talk over some stuff. But as kind of like a covert mentor. I just watched and observed everything he did and what he didn't do. And I learned a lot from that. And I began to apply that to everyone that I engaged with. And I really learned a lot from there. So over the age of, say, I think it was 16, we did a merger and acquisition with a local competitor in Brooklyn called Catalyst Promotions. And so my first exit was before joining the Army. I was a teenager. And Catalyst Promotions is still in business today, and they operate out of Florida. I no longer have any ties to the business other than, hey, I started it a long, long time ago. And as I joined the military, I still had the entrepreneurial bug. So during my time in the military, I continued to do small projects, small businesses, consulting work, and I really just built on that. So when I did transition, it was just not identify, well, Dwayne, I have to stop doing the military and start doing something else. I was already doing two things. I just stopped doing one and continued with the other.
Yeah, that's an interesting path because you kind of kept your foot in the game and was able to be planning and preparing for the future, because that's where a lot of veterans stumble is they realize, okay, now I'm getting out, I've made the decision, but they don't make any real plans, and then they're down to the wire to try to find a job, and they don't necessarily look at entrepreneurship as an avenue because they haven't thought far enough ahead of what that would look like and what they would do. So yeah, it's not a standard for sure, but it's certainly something people should be aware of. It's a great example, and it's a great example that you can always be working on entrepreneurial ventures. No matter what you're doing, it's something that doesn't have to be a full-time gig until you want it to be, or until you need it to be. And maybe in some cases it doesn't ever go full-time. It's just something that you do and you enjoy, because entrepreneurship gives people, that have that craving for that type of challenge. It gives them that positive feeling that they're looking for, even if their day job isn't exactly what they wanted. And so that's a great example. So as you got out, what business were you in that you were able to go forward with successfully?
Consulting work is the majority of work, or let me rephrase that. Consulting work is the majority of outside work I did from the Army. So really managing consultancy or doing independent consulting just for myself during the transition process just really helped it flow. So instead of having to identify what I was doing, I just stopped doing the Army and continued to consult. And consulting really is it's as easy or as complex as you want it to be. So for example, if you call me and say, hey, Mike, I have a question for you, and I give you an answer, by definition, that is consulting. So it can be as complex as having to travel to 5 places to meet with clients and prospects, or it could be as simple as just using the phone and Skype.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. So what do you think when you use the most from skills that you developed in the military that have really helped you as an entrepreneur?
I'm going to say 3 skills. First is leadership. Definitely, because leadership is taught, trained, mentored, and coached to you nonstop throughout the military. Is it the right answer for all situations? No, but neither is any other leadership style. But you learn and you continue to grow as a person and as a leader and as a professional, and you build on those skills. So I could say, well, the Army taught me these 3 things in leadership. Well, these 3 things don't really apply too well with what I'm doing now, but they can apply over here to what I'm doing tomorrow. So you still use that. And, kind of that tactical patience in leadership. Well, tactical patience is a phenomenal Army term, but it translates so well into the civilian world, because in the Army, ASAP means now, yesterday. When in the civilian sector, it literally means, well, as soon as possible. Dwayne, I'll get to you as soon as possible. And as soon as possible can be defined as whatever you want it to be. As soon as possible to Dwayne could be next month, and as soon as possible to me could be Tuesday. So it really changes a lot. The second part is aggressiveness. So this is really going to counteract my tactical patience part. So one of my competitive advantages as a consultant is that I'm aggressive. I like to go after stuff. I'm not going to sit around and talk about it for 8 years. We identify the data. We identify we have to collect. Let's collect it. Let's analyze. And let's provide a recommendation. Of course, there's times you have to sit on it and objectively look at the data that you're assessing, and then possibly look at several different courses of action. But there's no reason why it shouldn't take so long. Aggressiveness would be number 2. And then number 3, probably be the ability to have thick skin. Okay, so as we know, leadership military style is direct. It's somewhat in your face, and depending on who you work with or worked for, you may have been insulted directly or indirectly. So to be able to hear certain things, to be told certain things, and unfortunately sometimes you say those things to other people, which is not right, it grows thick skin. So when a prospective client tells you no, they don't want to hire you, or you get told no for whatever reason, don't take it personally. Just have thick skin. All right, move on.
Yeah, no, those are 3 great skills, because one of the things in my coaching practice that I really impress with my clients is their core strengths that they've developed in the military, to never lose those and to actually do the opposite and leverage those in every way you can possible, because it will make you stand out, and it will also keep you from worrying about how do I translate technical skills, because you're talking in different terms when it comes to your core strengths, and you'll be able to transition into most any type of industry using those core strengths, and it just depends on what you're looking to do. So those are definitely three great examples. So
you mentioned core strengths now, and then earlier you said a key word. You said enjoy. I love the word enjoy, and here's why. And I think it's really part of your key strengths. So when someone's preparing to transition and they say, "Hey, Mike, what is it I should do when I transition from service?" I don't give them an answer. I give them a question. I say, "Dwayne, what is it that you enjoy? Just do what you want to do, because if you absolutely are passionate about it and you are happy, if you get up and you enjoy doing whatever it is that you do in exchange for compensation, then you'll have a better product and you'll always be happy. The money will follow."
Yeah, no, that is a great point. Absolutely, following your passion is key, and I think that gets lost in the transition for a lot of people, because they say, okay, I was doing X in the military, so that means I must do that same thing on the outside, and that's not necessarily true. If it's what you're passionate about and you can transition from wearing a uniform to wearing a suit to do the same thing, then that's great. But, this is an opportunity when you transition to do what you are passionate about. And it may be completely different, technically, skill-wise, than what you were doing in the military. But those core strengths will certainly be your foundation to what is, what you're passionate about as well. So I think that's a great example. All right, so listeners, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Landmark Life Coaching's vision is to be the nation's premier coaching partner for inspiring and empowering those in transition. They partner with courageous groundbreakers and transitioning veterans to create fulfilling and empowering futures that they desire. They have partnered with various entrepreneurs and transitioning veterans to leverage their core strengths and implement the framework for the future they always dreamed of. Could you or anyone you know benefit from a success partner to bring clarity to your future or their future? If so, please check out landmarklifecoaching.com for more information and charliemikepodcast.com for the Charlie Mike Podcast, showcasing the successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Okay, we are back with Michael Barbera talking about the amazing entrepreneurial path that he has been on almost since the beginning. He shared with us before we went to commercial break how he started his entrepreneurial path when he was in his teens and had an amazing opportunity in the music area, and then went into the military and was able to continue keeping his feet in the entrepreneurial space while he was serving his country. And then once he was transitioning out, he continued down that path as an entrepreneur. So, normally, Mike, I go into, asking our listeners on my In the Zone segment saying, hey, when did you know, entrepreneurship was meant for you? But I think we've kind of already covered that, given that it's almost, was born within you. The genes were there. The desire was there from beginning. And so what advice or what things would you tell somebody who is not currently an entrepreneur but is thinking about it? Because, of course, the fear factor's out there and a lot of what-if scenarios for people in making such a transition. But what advice would you give somebody that's thinking about, I'd like to make that kind of transition?
I'm really glad you asked that question, because earlier today I was on a telephone call with a faculty member at Harvard Business School. And we were joking around and talking about military transitions and how complex they are. And we were talking about the same thing for professional athletes. Professional athletes go through a very similar transition as service members do, because during their collegiate time playing sports, it's mostly just sports, and the academic side is pushed to the side. So when they do transition from professional sports, they have no education to fall back on, very little education, and no experience to employment. And being scared, don't be scared of entrepreneurship. So those service members and athletes who are they're afraid of transition, and they feel like they are scared of employment or scared of entrepreneurship, or just scared to take the next step. So going back to the conversation I had with this Harvard Business School faculty member, he was telling me, well, Mike, that's a really good point you bring up about athletes and service members. Because over here at Harvard, if we were to tell a professor or faculty member that they have to leave the institution, they would probably go home and cry and not know what they're going to do with their lives. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter what kind of education you have, where you work, going out into the world to do something on your own, or to just change in itself, is scary. So I think that every service member is very confident. I think confidence is instilled very well into the service member throughout all your years of service, whether it's 2 years or 20 years. Use that confidence to your advantage. Capitalize on your confidence to not be scared and not let anything get in your way. If someone tells you no, shrug it off and continue to move forward. So don't be scared.
Yeah, that's some great advice, because we do build a lot of confidence within the military. We're put in a lot of situations where we've got to make, instinctual, immediate decisions, and especially in, if we're serving, overseas and tours and things like that, you're always, you're always in a lot of uncertainty. So this is just another form of that uncertainty, and it's not something you haven't experienced before. And so look back at those experiences that you've had and use that confidence that you've developed from, living through those situations and apply it to what you're doing now. It's funny, as I went through my career, when I was younger in my career, I used to think, wow, why am I sticking with this, this particular project or this particular effort or staying with this company if going through these high levels of stress in these different programs, what's in it for me? And then when I started to move along in my career, I always stuck it out and I always stayed with it just because that was my personality, but it doesn't mean I didn't question it. And at the end of the day, I look back and I'm like, now I know why I went through that. I can apply exactly what I learned then now, and I can help others in this situation. And, in my current, day job position as an executive, I'm always using those experiences to encourage and uplift the team that works for me to say, hey, believe me, we'll get through this tough spot in the project, and then down the road, you'll understand better how you can reuse this in a positive way. So yeah, I think that is a great example to use, using your confidence to, as a way to move forward into entrepreneurship if you haven't stepped in it. But even if you have stepped in it and now you're questioning, wow, what am I doing? Because, it's not exactly a level playing field once you get in there. It's going to have its, significant ups and downs, and, as you do it more, you become more accustomed to that.
Dwayne, you know what I do when the playing field isn't level? I make it level. You set the honeypot. If enough people tell you no and don't want to play on your level, then you set the honeypot out and let people come to you.
Good.
I'm all about changing the default. So you mentioned before about how you change stuff around and you take what you learn in the military and apply it today. That should be a core competency and part of the transition. And with that, vocabulary and changing the default. And I'll touch on those for a minute. So I'll use a 401k example for changing the default. If I said, Dwayne, welcome to this job we just hired you at. You can enroll into our 401k program at any time for $50 a month. Typically, a person of a lower socioeconomic status is going to say, no, Mike, I can't afford the $50. I'm going to keep it for myself for now. But if you just change the default and you say, well, Dwayne, welcome to this company. You're going to have a great time. We've automatically enrolled you into the 401k program, but you can opt out at any time. More than likely, that person is going to stay opted in and have a better retirement because of that. But it's the same policy, the same structure, the same program. You just change the default. You just change how it's approached. So if you just change the vocabulary or change how it's approached, you can conquer anything.
Wow, yeah, that is a great example. I hadn't heard it put like that, but that makes total sense because it's more putting it out there in a positive view of the situation, where if you put out, okay, it's going to cost you X no matter what it is, that's the first thing they think about. Where if you put out, well, you're going to be automatically enrolled in this program, and by default they know there's a cost associated with it, they're instead thinking about, wow, I'm already in the program, so let's see how it goes, right? Versus, I don't know if I want to. It's almost like in the other scenario, it's almost like they feel like they're paying to get into the program. So yeah, that is a very, very good way to think about that.
Yeah, change everything to an experience, because the average person in North America today doesn't want to do things. We want to have an experience. We don't want to buy things. We want to have an experience. So, for example, Dwayne, have you ever ate at a Benihana or a hibachi grill?
Oh yeah.
So the way we can describe that is, okay, Mike, you're going to open up a hibachi grill. Tell me what a hibachi grill is. I could say, well, Dwayne, you eat next to the stove. Okay, doesn't sound like a place you want to go. But I'll also say, you get to have a meal with the chef while he prepares it, and the chef's going to serve you a sizzling hot piece of fresh shrimp right off the grill directly to your plate. He's even going to toss it from the grill into your mouth. This is a time you want to spend with your family that you're not going to forget. So you just change the way it's worded, and just by changing the default or using vocabulary to your advantage is extremely powerful, and it can have a significant return on investment or a significant effect on the way people perceive your net worth or the way they perceive what you're worth to their company.
Wow, yeah, that is so true. So you got some amazing examples for our listeners to be able to ponder, because it's a lot of the way you react to things in life or the way you see things in life is what has a positive or negative effect on the actual outcome. And being able to market your company or market yourself in using those same types of concepts is huge. And so if you were to say, hey, I want you to be my client and it's going to cost you $250 to do this, a lot of people, the first thing, again, they're jumping on that on those dollar signs, thinking, I don't know. But if you throw out the benefits of your program right up front and don't even throw the dollar figure out to get it in their mind in the beginning, they're gonna approach it mentally, thinking about it differently. And so, yeah, that is a great example. What are some tools or resources you've used that really were beneficial when you were building up your business?
That's a really good question. So I'm going to cover that on a two-part answer. I'm going to cover that for military resources. I'm going to cover that for non-military resources. I think this might help listeners to get a good jump on this. So military resources. Obviously, I started businesses before I was in the military, but of course, you continue to grow. The moment where I believe that if you stop growing as a business or a person, then you can just stop what you're doing because you're no longer in it anymore. So military resources would be American Dream You, Okay, American Dream U has really helped with growing my network and introducing me to different concepts. So just like I'm talking about changing the default, American Dream U hosts speakers and has events that has really changed my look on how I perceive certain things. Also, the EBV program through Syracuse University, Entrepreneurship Bootcamp for Veterans. This is a program that they partner with 10 different universities. If you're thinking about going to entrepreneurship and you're a veteran, say, Google EBV or Entrepreneurship Bootcamp for Veterans and Syracuse University, and this is going to come up. It's a program that I would not miss out on. I don't work for the organization, so I'm not plugging them, but I think it's a really good program to go into. And then non-military, well, it depends on what you're going to do. So I used Toastmasters while I was in service. I thought Toastmasters is a great organization to join. So going back to the vocabulary thing, if you haven't told, I'm kind of biased towards vocabulary. So if you feel that you don't have a vocabulary that's at a graduate school level or higher, go to Toastmasters. They're not going to teach you an English class, but you're going to be forced to get up in front of other people, be uncomfortable in a fun environment, and talk about whatever you want to talk about. Talk about your business, your employment seeking. Talk about yourself, and it really gives you a chance to speak in front of an audience that is not that is outside of your normal segment of your population. It's away from the military. So join a Toastmasters group. Another non-military. You know what? This is going to be generic. It's not going to be a specific name of an organization, but definitely a co-working space. If you're thinking about transitioning or somewhere close to it, go find your local co-working space or your local innovation hub. Go get a monthly membership there, and whenever you have a chance, do your work, do your transition work from a co-working space, because you're going to have the opportunity to network with people who are outside of your own network, get away from the military, and so network and vocabulary are really too big together. And if you can combine those two, you're going to do all right. So co-working space will give you access to innovation, give you access to new ideas, and definitely to a larger network that you may not have previously had access to.
Yeah, wow, those are some great resources, great tips. So as we're winding down here, Mike, obviously you have an amazing wealth of knowledge and experience. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell our listeners how they can learn more about your company and get in contact with you if they want to. No,
nobody can contact me. I will not shoot you. Yes,
so just absolutely. The first
part. So I'll throw out my website and my email address, and it's my website is michaelbarbera.co. So MICHAEL Barbera BARBERA.co, which is CO, and then my email address is mbarbera, first initial, last name at BarberaSolutions.com. Thanks, Dwayne.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for being a guest on the show, and most importantly, thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for having me.
Remember, loyal listeners, we are the home of the free because of the brave.
Thank you for tuning in to Charlie Mike Podcast with Dwayne Paro. Our objective is to bring successful veteranpreneurs to help inspire and provide insight into what helped them become successful, with the hopes you can take away various strategies you can implement in your entrepreneurial journey. Visit us on iTunes, leave us a rating and review, and let us know what you thought of the show. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hoorah!